Hello and welcome to GyrlSense. My name is Maria Rodriguez-Furlow, your host and producer. The goal is to provide a platform where girls and women of all ages are enriched by your local talents. As an Afro-Latina myself, I hope to provide a safe space of awareness and women empowerment. My first guest is Ms. Elizabeth Nkonoki-Ward, President of Nkonoki-Ward Associates since 1980, formal provider for the Connecticut State CEU, worked 7 years as a member of the New Britain Symphony Board of Directors, worked 40 years as an adjunct professor at the Central Connecticut State University, former board member of the Office of Black Catholic Ministries, and a personal mentor of mine. This only scratches the surface of all the accomplishments and the awards that she has received and all that she has provided at her local and international communities. Mrs. Ward, thank you so much for sharing this moment with me.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Maria. I'm really proud of you because you have come such a long way, honestly. Thank you for inviting me, though.
Thank you. You were the first African American accepted into the music department at Danbury State Teachers College.
Yes, I was.
You graduated earning your bachelor's degree in music education in 1958 and completed your master's in elementary education in 1973. Who was your mentor in the 1950s and what motivated you to continue your education in the 70s?
Right, my mentor, or kind of mentors in the 50s. First, I would say that Mr. Vincent de Benedictus, who was the one who magically allowed me to become a part of the music department in my freshman year at New Britain High School. It was interesting because I had come from St. Joseph's School, small Catholic school, right? Come to this big building, New Britain High School. And I had it in my heart that I wanted to be a part of the choir. And this one day I went in and I was asking, how do you become a part of the choir? And whoever it was that I approached at that time, they said, well, you just go downstairs to the music room and you look at the board. And I think they put the list of the people who made it into the choir on that board. So I said, all right. I went down and I looked at the list. And I was saying, well, if they already have the list up, how can I get in? So somebody said, go in and see the director. The director happened to be Mr. de Benedictus. We called him Mr. D afterwards. And I told him, I said, I really would like to be a part of the choir. And Eleanor Genfrido, the accompanist, was over at the piano. He said, Eleanor, try her voice out. So Eleanor tried me out with my singing, and I got in. And that was amazing to me because that list was on that board outside. So anyway, as time went on, during my freshman year, it ended up that I became one of the soloists as a freshman.
Amazing.
And then Mr. D put me into the group that was called the Starlets, a very special group. It was a group, I think, of maybe 12 girls.
Okay.
All right. And then he put me into the senior choir. I was the only freshman that was there. Okay. So Mr. D was one of those mentors. During the time that I sang at the Christmas concert in my freshman year, one of the students came to me and said, Liz, there's a lady out in the audience who'd like to speak to you. So she took me out to see the lady, and it happened to be Harriet Hale Linger, who was a voice teacher. And she said, I'd like you to come and study voice with me. Well, I mean, you know, somebody said that, well, you must kind of have a voice, you know.
Absolutely.
So anyway, I went over to her house, and come to find out, the student who had brought me to her was also one of her voice students. Okay. But when I got there to the house, I'm listening to all these students singing opera. And I'm saying, okay, I don't think I want to be an opera singer. All right, so Mrs. Linger came over to me, and she was getting ready to try me out, you know. So I said, I really don't think I'd like to be an opera singer. And she said, would you like to be? And I said, I'd like to be a popular singer, not knowing at that time, you know, just my voice was not a popular kind of voice. So she said, but oh my dear, don't you know that all the most important pop singers have studied opera? Well, I mean, okay, so I was hooked. All right, so I began to study opera with her. And just a wonderful musical ride with this lady, because it ended up with her taking us to sing at Carnegie Hall.
Oh,
This was in high school.
what an opportunity.
All right, and it was like, she also, during that time, we would go to New York on weekends to study with Mr. John Hand, who was the director of the New York Light Opera Company.
Okay.
So in that building, we found out there was a studio for Marian Anderson, who was the most outstanding of the black singers, opera singers during that time. And I had the opportunity to meet her. And as time, I mean, so many things happened. All right, so it was Mr. D, Mrs. Linger. All right. The ride from high school was a wonderful one, because Mrs. Linger said to me, all right, Liz, where are you going to college? Well, Mr. D always talked about Boston University. He talked about Michigan State, University of Michigan. So I was like, I wanted to go where Mr. D had been. All right. Didn't have the money to go there. So finally I got my, you know, senses together. And Mrs. Linger said, Liz, why don't you go to Danbury State Teachers College? Danbury in Connecticut? What's the state in Connecticut to go to college? But I didn't say that to her, you know. So anyway, she said, I know the music, what was that, chairman down there. And my son is down there, she said. All right. So anyway, it was set up for me to go down there. I took the exam, and I was accepted at Danbury State Teachers College. And it wasn't until I decided, like in the beginning of that freshman year, that I didn't want to be a teacher. I didn't want to be a music teacher. I mean, all these kids were, boy, they were musicians.
Sure.
They were just going rings around me with the knowledge that they had musically, you know. So anyway, this one day I decided, well, I didn't want to waste money staying to learn to be a teacher if I didn't want to be a teacher. So I went into the chairperson's office and I said, Divvy, I don't think I'm cut out to be a teacher. And Divvy said, her name was Mrs. de Villafranca. So Divvy said to me, she said, Liz, do you realize that you're the very first Negro that has been accepted into this department? That's all she had to say. I mean, it was like, shut your mouth, Liz, get back there, do what you're supposed to do. Because if I didn't, that might close doors for others,
Exactly.
you know, coming behind. So mentors, Mr. D, Mrs. Linger, my mom and my grandmother, you know, from the beginning were my mentors. And my dad. My dad, I think, thought I was supposed to be somebody really important. And when he suggested, when I was getting ready to go to college, that I be a pharmacist, where did that come from, Daddy? You know, I don't know anything about chemistry. All right, so, but it just, God had my path set for music anyway, so.
When did you realize that you had a gift, whether it be musically or in any other form of capacity?
Well, the music always seemed to be the thing. When I was in 3rd grade, there were girls that were playing the piano, and I wanted to know how they learned to play the piano. And they said, well, Sister, I think it was Petronella, taught them during lunchtime. I said, and how much does it cost for a lesson? They said, $1. So I thought, I went home and I said to my mom, Mama, could I take piano lessons? And she said, how much does it cost? And I said, $1. And she said, well, you pay for your first lesson and after that I'll pay for all the rest of the lessons. I don't know where I got the dollar from. I do, but anyway, I had that first lesson, and I went through, and I stayed studying piano until maybe about 6th grade, and 6th or 7th grade, and that was when the other girls started to not want to continue with piano, and I didn't want to be, outside the group, so I decided I didn't want to continue anymore either. But as I went on in high school, the singing was the thing that sort of took over, and I never thought really that I had that much of a voice, but I had people that were encouraging me always, always with the singing. So that was the thing that got me into college. And when I got into college, it was that you had to do something with the piano. And in fact, the test to go into your junior year was that you had to play the Star-Spangled Banner and America the Beautiful and America, the three of them. You had to play them from memory. And that was on the piano. If you weren't able to do, you couldn't go into your junior year.
Which is interesting, because how long have you been the organist at St. Joseph's in New Britain?
I've been the organist at St. Joseph's since Lisa and Jay were little. I think I started back in the 60s, but then there was that break in between. And I've forgotten how it was that I actually, with Father Nadolny. That's what it was. Father Nadolny had been assigned to St. Joseph's Church for that summer or something. And I was in the church, and he was there, and nobody was playing music during the Mass. So I said, Father, I said, like, they don't have anybody to play the organ. He said, do you know how to play it? And I had one set, it was 6 lessons on the organ in Danbury during the summer. Okay. On the Charles Ives organ, which was wonderful. Okay. Anyway, I started then in the 60s, and the priest that was there at that time, he finally hired an organist. Okay. So that organist stayed there for a while, and then I don't know what happened. The organist left or whatever. And then Father Riley came to me when Brittany was 2. And Father Riley said, Liz, he said, why don't you go up there and direct the choir and play the organ? I said, but I have Brittany with me, and he said, the choir members can watch her. So I started then. So Brittany is 30, whatever. So it's over 30 years.
So the lessons didn't go, it wasn't wasted.
No, and it's interesting. I began piano at St. Joseph's School.
There you go.
And here I am still at St. Joseph's Church playing the organ there. I mean, I love it. I love it. It's a wonderful way to be able to just honor God, praise God.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you taught in the Hartford Public School System for 30 years. You were named Hartford's Teacher of the Year in 1986.
Surprisingly, there were so many other wonderful teachers.
So you have firsthand experience with today's youth, somewhat of today's youth. How do you feel in comparison to the toolbox that were provided that you had to work from when you growing up versus compared to the opportunities, or I should say the endless opportunities that the children may have today, however, may either not recognize it or may just walk away from it?
Okay, the toolbox when I was growing up. Let me say one thing. During the time that I was growing up as an African American, Latina also, you were expected to, from my close community, my family and all, you were expected to go on and do something with your life educationally, all right? And it was not that you were doing something for you, it was that you were doing it for your community. I think there's a difference for the young people now. because there have been so many doors open to them on the backs of those who suffered to make it possible for them to be there.
Correct.
I believe that we truly appreciated the whole thing of being the first, you know, I mean, opening doors so that others would be able to go through. And as the first, learning a lot that we could pass on to the others. All right, that was very important. And to my children, to, you know, to the students that I had, still is very important to me. The young people during this time, I mean, all the young people that I had as I was coming along teaching, I didn't feel that they were, you know, not in tune with representing their group, but I don't think that they had the sense of it the way that we did, you know, and probably more that had grown up in the South and had gone through so many terrible kinds of things. My mother brought me from the South when I was going on 2 so that I would be able to have a better education. I don't know if that is
really...
Do you think
that's the disconnect there? So the disconnect, you can connect why you did what you did to further along your education and to take advantage to whatever was presented, the doors that were opened to you, such as the woman who said, you know, Miss Liz, you know, you're the first Afro, you got it that first second. Right. There, no explanation needed.
Right.
You got it, right?
Right.
So in today's world, what's missing? Like, what's the disconnect? What is it that even when we say to our the youth, if you only knew, you know, how many times have we said that? If you only knew what we, and then the response is typically, yeah, we heard it, we've known it, you know, but it's today, that's the olden days. But what can be the bridge? What's an advice that you have for them and for parents, for that matter, that we can try to help connect those dots or bridge whatever that disconnect is?
Well, the whole thing that we had when we were coming along was that the parents would be teaching us about our own history.
Okay.
All right, and I find that there are not as many of the young people who really know the history. We were seeing it. I mean, newspapers, the black newspapers or African American newspapers would come out, boom, we were there. We were reading to see what was happening, you know, what happened to us. And we kind of knew more of the names of the important leaders at that time. I think the kids know more of the names of the sports people and of the people that are entertainers. Well, many of those people are there because of the others who went through such a struggle to help them to be able to move forward. And I don't think that the young people really feel that there's a struggle for them because there have been so many doors that have been opened for them. And it's good for us. We're getting back to those struggles, though, I believe, if we don't get ourselves together a little bit better. But the parents, that's a part of the key. Helping to know something, helping to teach something about your own culture, all right? If you don't teach it the right way, don't look for somebody else to teach it. Right. And I think that that's a thing, too. So much of the time we look for somebody else to do the teaching. You know, I mean, that's in many avenues, really, when you come down to teaching the Bible. I mean, you're looking for somebody else to teach your children about the Bible. You know, you send them to school, you expect the teachers to teach all that is to be known with the ABCs and all. Well, my mother and father, they sat me down at home, and good parents will sit their children down at home and go through these different things. A lot of young people are so much into the material kinds of things. They'll get the sneakers, they'll get the whatever, you know, that's going to cost a little bit of money, get the big houses, this, that, and the other thing. Those basic kinds of things for the children are so very, very important to help them to be able to move forward to get those material things. Not that those are the most important things in life, but also with the teaching that was going on. I remember My father, before I could even go to the movies one time, I must have been it was when I was in first grade. Before I could go to the movies, he said, "You have to know how to say your alphabet backwards." All right.
failed.
Okay. I learned it.
Oh.
I learned it, and I
Sure,
was able to go. You know, I can say that whatever happens with the children is not the children's fault,
Right.
because the children don't come here with a lot of faults. So it's the adults that are around them. If the adults do not pick up and take care of their job and helping to teach the children, and this is the other thing too. Look, the kids come home from school, they have homework to do. Oh, you go ahead, sit down and do your homework. Okay, there are things that I don't understand. Good parents will have their child sit down to do the homework, but they'll be there also to help to guide them, you know. Again, I say it's not always the children's fault.
Right.
If they don't know the history, it's not their fault. I used to hate history. I hated history, excepting for the part, you know, that was the black history that was being, that we would see in the black newspapers and all. But as time went on, do you know that for my master's history, black history, I had gone through like 10 years of collecting history, oral history, from different ones in the community that I had known.
Sure.
And my dissertation had to do with that.
Look at that.
So, yeah.
See that?
But and then with the children in school, talking about learning about their history, during I think it was during the 70s in New Britain, we had a curriculum committee group that helped to get African American history into the schools. Now I went through every single grade to find out what was being taught. And every single grade, and I found black history or African American history to insert into the curriculum, all right? The group of us, George Springer Sr. was one of the committee members, and George was fabulous with history, with black history. We got it into the school system. Now what I hear is that many of the black kids don't bother about going to take the black history. It's the white kids who are taking it, and I guess the black kids think that they already know their history or something, you know, so they don't always, you know, bother about taking the course. And if you don't take the course, that means that that's going to be taken out of the curriculum, okay? So our young people they're fabulous, they're intelligent, still tremendously intelligent, but it takes us to help to guide them too. So, okay, did I answer your question?
You absolutely did. And I think my takeaway with that is, of some sort, is kind of less was more, right? Less was more. You had less.
Right, and the kids now had more.
You had less, and it didn't stop you from, you know, going to college. It didn't stop you from searching, okay, what's next? The newspaper, black and white newspaper, was your tool, or one of your tools in your toolbox that helped you to keep you interested, to keep you educated, and so forth. Whereas today, click of a button, we have everything,
Right.
which isn't always bad.
Right.
But what I'm hearing, you know, as well, what we're used to, the young children, perhaps there's just so much to choose from, so much information, it's probably hard to kind of digest, okay, Black History Month, take me back there again. I'm already black, what else do I need to know, type thing, you know. So, you know, it's just taking the time with the individual and so forth. So for those parents or for those children who may not have that particular parent via maybe a language barrier or any other type of barriers, that they're able to sit down and go over the homework with their children, you know, because there's always barriers.
Right.
And so what would you recommend for that population of children? Where can they go to if they need help, if they're trying to seek help? What organizations that are pretty much universal that they can go to find help? And we can go to a library, or what other, organizations that you may have come across or that perhaps you have advised your students to go to?
Right now, as far as the language, those who have the language barriers, I'm not sure. I'm dealing with some people from another country now, and I took them to the library yesterday,
Okay.
and that was their first time inside of a public library. Well, they have 6 children, and I had taken some of the older children there before, but the little ones had not really had the experience of going in and sitting. I pulled out puzzles,
Okay.
and it was like I don't think they had any experience with puzzles before. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm trying to help them with language. They're trying to help me with their language too. And I see that there is a need for some little things, that all of our children, or many of our children, would have had the experiences with already. Okay. Organizations that are assisting as far as language is concerned, literacy. There's a literacy group in New Britain that helps the parents and probably the kids too. There's the Siena Center in New Britain. The nuns have the languages that different languages that are Polish and Spanish. I've forgotten, there's some of the Asian languages, but they have them come in to learn the English also there. So those 2 organizations, Literacy Volunteers and also Siena, the Siena Center at St. Joseph's, right, in St. Joseph's School, where I went to school. Okay. That's there now.
Wonderful. And so we're getting ready to wrap up the show.
We are already?
We are. I know. Time flies. Exactly. But I don't want to leave without asking a couple more questions here. You are the youngest senior I know.
Really?
In all sense.
Really?
Absolutely. What's the one thing you have not accomplished and have the burning desire to fulfill?
One thing that I haven't accomplished, it's getting all of the videos that I have taken and getting all of the books that I have collected cataloged. I mean, there's, like you're looking for me to say something grandiose that I'd like to go to Canada, but, like I don't have really great things, extra big things that I'd like to do.
Which means you're so seasoned.
Is that what it is?
And so experienced, right? You've done it all. What do you want your family to take away from your journey?
I'd love my family to take away from my journey just the love for God, to dedicate themselves to God, and to get their souls back to heaven. And that's where I want my soul to go, is back to heaven. So.
Thank you very much for sharing this very first show of mine, GyrlSense.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Can you imagine, this is one of my former students from elementary school. Wonderful.
Thank you. Well, that does it for today. My name is Maria Rodriguez Furlow, your host. Please join us again for more GyrlSense.